Okay, here we go. So, as discussed a little bit earlier, we said that what we want to do is that for trig, what we want to use cosine here, okay? And what we need to do is that for cosine, we need to make sure that it is going to be flipped, so a is going to be negative when we build the final thing. So I'm just going to put a negative sign here because cosine is starting at the bottom rather than the top like it typically does. Okay, so now we need to find out what is going to be the magnitude here. So the way that we find that out, it looks like we can just subtract, right, the minimum rather from the maximum, and then divide it by 2, and that should give us our numbers that we need. Okay, so subtracting the maximum from the minimum is going to give us 232, okay? And we want to find the middle of that, which is going to be right in the middle there, okay? And when I say middle, this is what we're finding these distances right here, okay? And so to find right in the middle, let's divide that by 2. That's going to give us 116. And so it looks like each one of these guys are going to be 116, 116, 116. So it's basically, if you think about it, that's the length of each blade then. It's going to be 116 feet. Okay? So, again, it's starting at the bottom, so it's going to be a negative 116 starting off. All right? So we got that all put together. Now, what we need to do is that we need to figure out the period. And to figure out the period, remember the definition is going to be when the function starts to repeat itself. So I'm going to grab this chunk right here. Okay? And let's take a look at, using the same method that we did in the previous video, how to go ahead and knock that thing out. Okay. So by the looks of it, just using what we know about the graph and whatnot, is that the period of our function is going to be 30, okay? So that's going to be 30 seconds. And to find the period, typically, we're going to go 2 pi divided by b. And so what we want to do is that combine these statements up, and we can basically, since we know what the period is 30, we'll plug this in and solve for b. So we get 30 equals 2 pi divided by b. And the b and the 30 are going to switch places, and we're going to get pi divided by 15, it looks like. All right? So we got pi divided by 15 for b. Now, the cool part about this one is that the phase shift, okay, is going to be 0. And the reason why we know that is that it's when you have a minimum or maximum that is starting on basically the y-axis there, is that we don't have to shift it left or right any, because it's just starting right there, and to mess with it, it would be kind of making more work on ourselves, okay? So there's not going to be any phase shift. However, we do have to determine how high up in the air that this thing has been shifted vertically. So what we need to do is that we need to think about the following. So let's look at our graph. I'm going to just do a real quick sketch part of the graph right here. And so we can put these pieces together. All right. And we'll need this, and we'll need this. And this is not to scale by any means. And right in the center there, this is going to be 116. We know that much, okay? And then we also know that this is going to be, this distance is going to be 90, oops, let's use a different color so it doesn't look all weird, is going to be 96. So therefore, if I add those two up, that is going to give me, what, 212? And so, I know that this entire distance that the entire graph has been raised vertically is going to be 212, and so that is going to be what D is, all right? So, putting all these pieces together, I'm going to move this guy out of the way, and then we're going to do our digital part in a minute. I don't know why my eraser is so small at this minute. Yeah, right. So, putting these together, I'm going to get h of t, so height with respect to time, is going to be a negative 1/16 cosine and pi over 15 t, and then plus 212 at the very end. Okay. So, that said, that's how we do that part. And in the next part, we're going to start by checking and seeing if we're correct. I got a hunch we are, though. And using Desmos to answer the questions on the bottom. So, I'll see you in the next video.